and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Yandri Pienaar from Moyo. Moyo started its journey with LRMG just over a year ago. During this short period, Moyo has been able to digitize, drive collaboration, and spark more efficient and effective employee engagement processes. Moyo's rapid deployment, successful implementation of the cornerstone talent platform, and high adoption rate is certainly a benchmark worth celebrating, all thanks to Yandri and her HR team.
I'm from Moyo, which is a digital consulting business with many different aspects within our organization. And before I get started to share with you the journey that we had in implementing this talent solution, I'm first going to give you a bit of a background of Moyo itself. It's on changing. So as I mentioned, Moyo is a digital consulting organization. That's where we started back in 2007. And since we've actually built out into a group of companies. We've gotten to a point where we now also offer engineering solutions, talent solutions to our clients. And we also have a a technology solutions business area where we sell technology and actually build our own software and technologies that we can sell into the market. I sketch this background of who Moyo is and what we do, because it's an important, I think, important in setting the scene of where our HR team comes from. We work with technology people each and every day. And I can tell you from the very start, when I joined about almost 12 years ago, it was a steep learning curve to get into the language of technology and get into understanding technology-related initiatives and skills and people. It definitely helped us as a team a lot in implementing the solution because we were able to speak to the technology landscape. But along the way, we definitely also had a lot of lessons to learn. So I'm going to share our story in 3 parts, talking a little bit about the pre-decision to implement an HR information system and solution, and some of the lessons we learned there, because it was quite a struggle to get the buy-in from business initially. Then I'll talk a little bit about the strategic alignment, eventually getting the mandate and choosing the solution, and then how we went about a successful implementation. So about 6 years ago, we actually started this journey. Back then, the concept of HR analytics became quite a big buzz in the market. It had been existing for quite some time, but the whole narrative around digital transformation had started. And in the HR world, I was suddenly exposed to things like HR information systems, to HR analytics and the different maturity models around that. And I was definitely one of those people that saw something really awesome and just wanted to implement it. To be honest, at the time, we knew that we wanted it, but we didn't quite yet understand why. Why did we want it? Why did we need it? How does it actually play into our business, into business strategy? How would it really enable us, and what would it really mean for us? So as much as we wanted it, looking back, I realized that perhaps at the time, we weren't really ready. As much as it was a struggle and we weren't happy that we weren't getting buy-in at the time, looking back, I think the timing definitely worked out very well. Some of the key aspects that I believe we missed in our initial driving a business case for this solution was, first of all, the business strategy. I think as HRs, we talk a lot about enabling the business strategy and playing into that. But looking back again, I realized that perhaps we didn't really understand that. We didn't really understand exactly what business meant with its objectives. And we didn't really understand how should HR and could HR enable that. They had to really step into the business's shoes and really understand what they were setting out to achieve. Another important point is finance. Let's be honest, an implementation like this does cost a lot, and it is a lot of investment. So you need to be able to show the return on investment. Again, as HRs, we work in the abstract world of people and feelings. We aren't necessarily the finance guys, but you need to be able to speak into the finance agenda and rand and cent, show them and be able to articulate how this investment would actually add value. How, if certain efficiencies are driven, we could have a cost save, or we could do things faster, or whatever the case might be. And that was something that we didn't get quite right from the beginning. Also very important is the system landscape. Today, I think there are very few organizations that don't have a digital transformation strategy. And it is important for us to understand that technology landscape, that enterprise architecture, and where we as HRs slot into that, where our systems and solutions slot into that. Again, something that 6 years ago, we probably didn't understand as well as we should have. Over all of this, timing was also very important. And as I mentioned earlier, I think actually we probably weren't ready at the time. But as we spent time getting to better understand the concept of HR digitization, the concept of implementing an HR solution, better understanding strategy and all of this, it allowed us to mature our HR function along the way. And then came COVID. And it certainly propelled each and every one of us into the future, where we thought we were still going to think about digital transformation and digitization. All of a sudden, it was an adapt or die situation. This definitely helped our case from an HR perspective, advocating for an HRIS, because in the past, and up until implementing the system, our HR function was based off FaceTime and many Excel sheets, many documents, which I think you all would know and know the pain thereof. So we knew in order to manage a remote workforce and eventually where we are now, a hybrid workforce, we needed to bring our HR function and everything that plays into that into this new century that we are in. As I mentioned along the way, as an HR team, as a function, we definitely grew a lot in understanding the different aspects. In every time that you sort of run into a wall, you learn something from that. And that helped us mature and helped get us to a point where we could actually start speaking into the business strategy. When the time was ripe and we could align actually with business, where we were all driving in the same direction of digital transformation, there was a strong mindset change to drive towards not only transforming from a digital perspective, but also drive efficiency and effectiveness in everything that we do, so that there really is a value creation at the end of the day. Along the way, the organization, Moyo itself, actually set out an enterprise architecture landscape of where it is that we want to go in future as an organization, and all the different systems and solutions and points of data that we need to get there. As an HR team, we were luckily part of that conversation. We could have a view into that enterprise architecture landscape. And the key thing that stood out for me was that because we provide professional services, our business really revolves around people and skills. So at the center of all of these systems and this landscape that we have, we needed people data. We needed to understand our employee landscape. And through that, we were able to link up, actually build a compelling business case that spoke to the technology and business strategy, and eventually start to get buy-in from our exco. Once we got that buy-in, it was time to go to the market and look for a solution that would suit and speak to the key factors that we were looking for, to our key needs. I have to note, at this time, we still hadn't gotten the official go-ahead. We were merely tasked with go and see what's available out there. In looking for a solution, the team that went out to do this was our HR team, and we teamed up with our technology or business enablement department to look at what's available in the market, We went through so many demos, but at the end of the day, what was really key for us was finding a solution that would meet us as an organization and as an HR function where we were at. And then also allow us to scale going forward, to help us take our HR function to that next level, to drive our employee engagement to a next level, and to really move into that Society 5.1 world. As an organization, we really wanted to grow, and we still have big dreams of growing far beyond where we are now. But we didn't want a solution that we would have to replace in 2 years. So again, had to be scalable and had to help us build a sustainable growth from an HR perspective going forward. And so we ended up with Cornerstone. Once we had the solution, we had the business case, we had a key journey to now start following to actually get the final buy-in, to get the investment, and then to have a successful implementation. In presenting the Cornerstone solution to our stakeholders, we again played back into our strategy, not only how this HRIS would help, but specifically the Cornerstone solution, how that spoke to the key driving factors in our strategy of collaboration, high performance, efficiency, and also importantly to play into how this would fit into our bigger enterprise architecture landscape, the integration capabilities that was possible through the solution. We were, at this time, I think it was towards the end of 2021, when we finally got business buy-in. But they had one very big prerequisite or requirement of us to get the final go-ahead and get the investment for this implementation. And that was that we had to implement within 6 months. Because we had this landscape of various solutions and systems across the business that was needed or needed to be upgraded, we only had a very short time frame. And if we missed that, it was a now or never situation. We probably wouldn't have had the opportunity again to get investment and implement a solution like this in the foreseeable future. This was towards the mid of November in 2021. As we all know, in South Africa, December is a bit of a dead month. And then going into financial year end and statutory reporting, and just a very, very busy time for HR. As scared as we were as a team, we just realized, as I said, it's now or never. We closed our eyes, we took on the challenge, and we just tackled the bull by the horns. The very first thing that we started off with was planning. Planning. We put together a project team, not only from the Talentech LRMG side, but within Moyo, we put down a project manager with a full project team that would focus and take accountability for the successful implementation. Within that project team, not only the HR team being included, we also included, of course, our business enablement technology team, but senior management was included from our biggest business areas, which was digital consulting. In including them, we allowed them to actually be a part of the implementation, to be a part of the ownership and accountability thereof. These are the guys that would actually use the system at the end of the day. They are the end users, but also given that they come from a digital consulting background, they had a lot of knowledge in implementing systems like this. It's what they do, that's their bread and butter, and they could really add a lot of value for us. Together with the LRMG Talentech team, each team had a very detailed project plan that we aligned together, and we ran literally weekly steercos to make sure that not only the Moyo team is aligned, the LRMG team is aligned, but the two teams together were aligned and prepared at all times. So far that we actually booked in advance our meetings, our UAT sessions and everything 6 months in advance to make sure that we were prepared. Another key thing was from the start to partner with the right people to assist us in the implementation, but also in the change management and the adoption towards the end. Again, here we had senior management involved. Even in some of our UAT and discovery sessions, we would have some of our middle managers involved. In testing, we had some of our employees involved to assist us with testing. And I think most importantly, we were lucky enough to get our managing director to be the project sponsor. That meant that we had buy-in for the success of this project from the very top. Another important thing, and I heard earlier today in one of the other sessions, someone also talk about the importance of change management and that continuous conversation and communication with the end users. We started off, even when we were still in planning phase, to build excitement, to build this compelling vision and share that with our people. And not necessarily in the most flashy of ways. As an HR team, we simply joined or shared the conversation over a cup of coffee, around the water cooler, but we started putting the word out there of something big to come, something that would really help put the employees in the driving seat, the managers in the driving seat of what was going on within the employee portfolio and what they needed to do. We implemented a phased approach, so we rolled out about 2 modules at a time, and with each and every go live, we made sure to do demos at the different levels, from a management user perspective, admin user perspective, and an employee user perspective. We also knew that initially, if you sit in on a demo session, there's a lot to see, there's a lot of new things, but only when people start using the system would they get to know what's going on, and they're probably going to forget where to click and what to do. So we had how-to videos that we made. We had little virtual walk-in sessions where they could come for support, almost like a virtual support desk that was live on a weekly basis, to get support from the HR team and also to get feedback from the people of what's working, what's not working, and how we could further enhance. We did go in with a very vanilla implementation initially to make sure that we can just get everything in and get everyone working on it. But certainly there had to be enhancements, and we always want to build and enhance the system going forward. So that feedback from people was really, really important. And then, of course, being responsive to that on a continuous basis. In the end, we were able to deliver. We were able to implement 6 modules, basically the full system, within 6 months. Excuse me. And along the way, as I mentioned, we had to keep our eyes not only on the summit, the ultimate end that we needed to reach, but also keep an eye constantly on that strategic alignment, on what we were mandated to do, and on our successful implementation plan. If we kept an eye on those 3 things, continuously looking back to that, we could get to where we needed to be, and we finally did. We had some short-term wins, we had some long-term wins, and I will share a little bit more about that in the next slide. But we had, in the end, a wonderful take-up. We are now about 6 months post-implementation, a little bit over that. And I think there's really not one user that hasn't made use of the system as yet. We went through our very first performance reviews on the system. We're currently in our compensation task, our very first increase cycle on the system. So far, so good. But definitely the system has been very well adopted within our organization. And I think the key things that spoke to that, or why people adopted so well, was definitely, again, that buy-in from the start. The fact that the solution that we implemented does actually allow and enable us to achieve certain business objectives. It provides us with data and information for on-the-fly decision-making. You don't have to go and scratch around in files looking for that one Excel file you saved at one time that had the information available. It really ignited our people, I think, and really created a new standard for the way in which we want to engage with our employees. It's definitely saved us time, not only for the HR team, but also for our managers and our employees. Across the board, we were able to achieve a lot of efficiency. Some key wins that we had, and I'm not going to go through everything, but within 6 months of implementing, on the recruitment and onboarding side, we processed about 36% more CVs in that time. This was massive for us. I think in the first 3 months, we processed over 400 CVs, which was a first for our team. We are a team of only 2 HR people and myself. We were also able to bring down our application to hire time from where we were standing at around 18 weeks at one point, bringing that down to about 3.5, 4 weeks. When we went through our performance reviews recently, we brought that cycle down with 2 weeks. Initially, the best that we ever did in the past was to get the full cycle of performance reviews done within 6 weeks. We managed to get it all done to a point of being able to report on that data and actually have data available to report on within a 4-week period. And as I mentioned, on the compensation side, we are actually currently going live, or well, we've already gone live, but for the first time running increases and increased tasks through the system. Again, where the senior managers of each business unit actually are in the driver's seat and can take ownership. They run it. I simply load a task, I set the parameters, and they are able to manage their increases within the organizational parameters. At the end of the day, reflecting back, as an HR team, we definitely learned a lot. We definitely didn't do things right from the start. As I mentioned before, I think it might have been a blessing in disguise, because I do believe our timing would have been off. Eventually, the timing was ideal. But we definitely moved forward, not only in the maturity of our HR function within the organization, but as individuals ourselves. We really, really learned a lot. Everything we do now supports the business strategy. We truly understand what it means to enable the business strategy and also the technology strategy, as many companies have key transformation strategies in place these days. At the end of the day, as an HR team, we stepped into the technology landscape. Not only were we now just managing the technology talent and recruiting for these resources, but we really formed a part of it and stepped into the new world of HR, well, at least for our organization. That's the story from my side. I am just going to hand over to the team to quickly show you our little marketing video that we made for our employees that shows a little bit of the functionality and what our system is all about. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Yandri, for that wonderful presentation. I mean, it really is a feat to deliver all of those value-adding, not just functionalities, but I think strategic enablers to the business within a period of 6 months. I think it's a feat, and I'd like to say congratulations. And I think it's truly through the partnership between, I think, yourself, IT, and the implementers of the system, being the talent tech team. But certainly, a partnership like that has to be two ways. And we really appreciate the partnership so far. And we look forward to more. On the point of more, what do you see as, the plan going further to build on this journey, the successful journey that you've already started?
Thanks, Ryan. There's definitely another long journey there to go forward on. Now that we have the system in place, there's just on Cornerstone itself and Moyo itself, a lot of enhancements that we can do to actually further mature the people management function and the HR type processes within the organization. Simple things like, for instance, waiting on performance goals, something that we didn't use before that we are now starting to implement. So just the solution itself has a lot more to offer and a lot more nuances that we can build on. So we actually have a whole parking lot of ideas of how we can further improve and further drive efficiency and collaboration through the Cornerstone solution. But then also a next step within the bigger scheme of things, as I mentioned, we do have an enterprise architecture landscape that we are looking to optimize. So this solution that we implemented now is essentially our master employee data. And that now has to start integrating into all of these other systems. So we have a wonderful team within our digital consulting business area that will be looking after not only enhancing and implementing even more systems and solutions that different business areas need, but also to drive the integration between all of those systems so that we can actually have data connecting to other data and bring just more and more insights for the organization.
Fantastic. Yeah, we look forward to working with you on that journey. I've got quite a barrage of questions, which may take us into the next 15 minutes, given that we do have till about 1:45. So I'll start with two really good ones. So the one from Lorinda says, has this helped you and your team build your personal internal brands? And do you now have a lifted seat at the boardroom and strategic table within the organization?
Definitely. As I said, we work with technical people, engineers and IT people, and their mindset is a lot different than ours. They are focused around these technology aspects, and here comes HR. We're talking abstract things, we're talking emotions and feelings. So it's definitely, HR never could share the language almost, if I can call it that. As much as we understood the IT landscape, we never could really be a part of that. I think also because of the type of work that we do, the rest of our business was definitely leaps and bounds ahead of the HR department in terms of how they did things and being more efficient and using technology to their advantage. So I think HR was also seen as being a bit behind in that sense. The fact that we implemented a technology solution and that we brought HR and technology together definitely, I think, made people see the HR team and the HR function in a new light. And as I mentioned, it definitely helped us get a seat and join the conversation around the technology landscape. Not only because we implemented this, but because we as a team learned so much. We learned what it means to implement a system. We learned more of the language, and we are able to actually follow the conversation and understand the conversation in the first place, but actually contribute towards that conversation. So I definitely think as a brand for HR, this certainly helped us move forward.
Excellent. Thanks, Yandri. To the second question, and I think there's two here that I think I'll combine into one. Firstly, how important do you think IT and HR working together is?
It's an interesting question. A couple of months ago, I joined a conversation with one of our previous colleagues. She had started her own business in the advisory world as well, and she wanted to have a conversation around digital transformation and whether that's something that sits with IT or with HR. My conclusion to that is that it's something that sits on both. I believe that to have a successful digital transformation strategy and actually successfully transform, you have to have IT involved, but you also have to have HR involved. At the end of the day, you're bringing together technology and people. The tech guys understand the tech, the people guys understand the people. So you need to build that bridge and actually take hands. I think as HRs, we will, well, I suppose we could, but I mean, it's not the aim to be tech experts. And for the tech guys, the aim is not to be people experts. We really need to take hands. If we want to get systems and automations and bots and all of these things into the world where people use it, you need that partnership together. And that means that both sides need to be able to speak the other's language. But I do believe that, you know, I can't make anyone speak the HR language, but I can definitely start changing it from my side. And hence why I believe HR needs to start that conversation almost. I think there are organizations where IT definitely invites HR's voice into the room, but from HR side, we need to align to the technology conversations and actually start those conversations from our side to show that we do understand and that we can add value. But I do believe that transformation is definitely a partnership between the two.
Fantastic. And that's actually, it's interesting you mentioned that, because that's a big topic we're talking about later on in the panel discussion. So fantastic for us to be able to lead into that. Another great one is, and I'm combining the two again, because I do think they're quite similar. In what way did your organization's culture contribute to the buy-in and implementation of your platform? And second part to that is, have you seen a change since the implementation?
Okay, let's talk about the culture first. Having an organization with 90% tech-orientated people definitely helped. Our organizational culture used to be a very strong fan culture. That was actually our main focus, very family-orientated, really looking after and supporting one another. And that is awesome, and we still have that today, I must mention. But what was important for us was to drive also a high-performance culture and an innovation culture. And I think given the line of business that we are in, the industries that we operate within, it definitely, I mean, the IT world is all about innovation and high performance. So that culture definitely lives within our organization. And it certainly helped in the implementation. It certainly helped with buy-in. But it also made it difficult at times, I must say, because you've got experts in this field. There's also a lot of critique coming along the way that you have to field. From a cultural shift perspective, I think what the cultural shift has been is just almost more accountability and ownership from an HR perspective. And what I mean by that is, so we have this clan high performance culture, but something that got left behind a lot were some of the people functions, simple things like development plans for people, regular performance conversations, etc. This tended to fall behind. And I think in that, a lot of times you lose a little bit of your employee engagement. But HR can't do this for everyone. I mean, we don't have the time and the capacity, and it certainly isn't our role to be involved in those conversations. That's something that needs to happen between an employee and the line manager. And I think with the implementation of the solution, it's brought that to the front, and it has enabled our line managers to take more accountability and to take more ownership of their employees' life cycle, and to actually lean on HR as an enabler to bring that employee experience across and to a next level. So I think that's one of the key things that happened. Also from a performance tracking perspective, being able to have tracking on performance goals and having visibility on performance goals also plays into that high performance culture and a culture of ownership and accountability.
Excellent, fantastic. Thanks, Yandri. That's a great way to see it. Now, this is going to be a difficult one. When and where did you face your biggest obstacle, or the first or biggest obstacle during the implementation?
To be honest, from an implementation perspective, with a system and in terms of our project plan, there certainly were issues. There certainly were, excuse me, there certainly were challenges. But I think as a team, we were well set up, and everyone was so involved and invested that we were able to quickly respond and resolve those issues. The biggest challenge actually came in to keep the team motivated and to keep the momentum going. As I mentioned, just within my HR team, at the same time that we were implementing, we actually were going through our regular annual year-end and statutory reporting, and really the busiest time for HR is the first 6 months of the year. And now on top of that, where the team is already overloaded, we were throwing the system on top of that with a lot of work that came with that. And I think at one stage, initially, we were all amped up and ready to go. But along the way, it really becomes tough. You're working late nights. There's a lot of moving parts. It becomes really difficult. So we really had to make an effort to celebrate the small wins, just as a project team. Yes, guys, we actually did our discovery session today. Yay! It might not seem like a big accomplishment in the bigger scheme of things, but it was something that we got done and that we got ticked off our list. But also it was important to, from time to time, just lift up our heads and look at where it is that we were trying to go, what the end state is. There was certainly a time where I know my team said to me, yes, I don't think this is going to make our life easier. I think this system is actually going to make it worse. We're going to work harder. We're going to work longer. And to listen to those concerns and as I said, you know, really teams getting tired and demotivated, but to bring that back and say, guys, let's just look up for a moment and see where we are going. And I promise you that we will get there. So I think for me, really, that was the biggest challenge. It wasn't as much on the implementation. It was really getting the people to stay motivated and to keep the momentum going on the implementation.
Absolutely. And speaking of small wins, what was the first glimpse of success when you realized you were onto something?
The first glimpse of success was actually, I can't remember the exact timeline now. It was around, I think, April, May. We had gone live with recruitment and onboarding. And at our exco that month, I was able to actually show our recruitment pipeline live. This is something that our exco wants to see on a regular basis. We are continuously recruiting for skills. We work in an industry where finding the right skills is really, really a challenge. There's a massive war on talent. And to plan accordingly for projects that we could take on, we need to know what our talent pipeline looks like. Who do we have coming? And one of the points, of course, there's a skills development perspective on that. But having gone live with recruitment, I was able to actually log in on the system. And when you go to recruitment on the landing page, there's this beautiful little summary that says, this is the amount of CVs that came in, each and every status that we go through, where applications were lying, and they could actually get a view of, wow, okay, so I can see that there's actually about 20 interviews on the horizon. We've got 3 people that offers are out for. So it was that visibility to Exco and other senior management of the recruitment pipeline. That was really the first thing, and it was the first time that we were able to provide them with visibility on that pipeline.
Excellent. Yandri, I know there's a ton more questions I could ask you, but I'm going to let you off the hook for now. We really appreciate the presentation. It was fantastic insights. And yeah, we look forward to working with you further and to make sure we can, show more value and impact in the future. We really appreciate the time.
Thank you. Look forward to the partnership. Thanks, Ryan.